You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, brought to you by the Hockey News. With over 2 million dedicated readers, the Hockey News, established in 1947, is the authoritative source of hockey and the #1 hockey publication in North America. With an ever-growing podcast network and a video database on top of an already established print and digital brand, the Hockey News is there to cover all the major hockey stories from around the world. Visit thn.com/deal to get the best value on subscription to the Hockey News. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and with me, as always, Rick Squid Vaive. How are we doing, Squid?
Oh boy, I'm doing pretty good. It's, you know what, it's kind of difficult. I'm out golfing in the mornings, but then there's not a whole lot going on except for the hockey games in the evening. But now I'm starting to read things and reading about this pandemic and, the possibilities going forward. And it's like, are we in for another total lockdown? And, the chances are that might happen.
Yep. So, and these people have to realize that this is a very serious thing, and you've got to stay socially distanced and stop forming big groups and partying. Stop it.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's the younger generation that are kind of expanding their bubbles. They're bringing in other people in that aren't necessarily in their bubble, and things have gotten worse. So hopefully, we can take it back a notch and
move forward.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's another feather in the cap for the NHL that have done just an absolutely phenomenal job with this whole playoff and the bubble experience for the players. And, as we've been saying right from the beginning, all those naysayers are being proven 150% wrong. This is going to be going down as one of the toughest Stanley Cups to ever win with these players have gone through. And I guess, we're going to look back on this. It's going to be definitely one worth remembering, that's for sure. But with all of that, it does bring some news, good and bad. And the hockey world lost another one of its members, a longtime member, Bob Nevin. We'd like to take a second here just to pay our condolences to the Nevin family, to his wife, Linda. I know from personally for myself, he was a regular visitor to the room, along with his wife, Linda, and the two of them would always step up to help with any of the fundraiser that we held or any of our events. And, the one thing I remember Bob was, I think you and I were talking off air, Squid, and we mentioned that he was quiet, but he also could be extremely funny. And I recall one time after one of our monthly hockey talks that I'd moderate, the topic had stirred to Punch Imlach and some of his antics, the guys who liked him, who disliked him, and you start smiling right away and Punch's name gets brought up during his tenure with the Maple Leafs both times.
I can't say too much though because he traded for me. So
that's true too. So you got to be nice about it. That's for sure. But I remember after this one particular event, and we had been talking about Punch had come up and he'd been the subject, and all of a sudden Bob walked up and said, "Oh, Mike, I really appreciated what you guys talked about today, and it was really fun and great. But listen, I don't know why you didn't come and talk to me about Punch. I could have given you the real story on an effing asshole." And of course, he had traded Bob, so he had a little bit of an axe to grind. But it just cracked me up, and just a couple of guys standing around. But again, you must have spent some time at Nev yourself, Squid.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was a regular in our alumni box. Was there a lot with his wife, Linda, and you know what? I had a lot of conversations with him, and like you said, he was pretty quiet. But once you got into a conversation with him, he could get pretty animated, and even at his age, and he could get pretty animated. But he was a great alumni. He was diehard Leaf fan. He was there a lot, and had a lot of time to sit down and talk with him many nights, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad because we've lost Red Kelly, Johnny Bauer, Eddie Shack, now Bob Nevin, and all those guys from our genre and our era that we grew up watching these guys and admiring the way they play. Slowly, that 60s roster starting to get thinner and thinner year after year. And for somebody like me, this is one of the reasons why I think it's imperative and very important that we preserve the history of the game from past generations to pass on to the younger generations so they can appreciate where the game has come from and where it's going.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, 100%, Mike. It's I mean, all those guys that, the Johnny Bauer, and I mean, probably the only guy left or one of the only guys is Dave Keon. And, he's not around that often, but, I miss those guys because I used to love to talk to them about what it was like back in when they played and that sort of thing. And, it's funny because when we get together with some of the current players at events and stuff, there's not a whole lot of conversation about what was it like when you played, but that was one of the things that we always wanted to know. We always asked these guys, like, what was it like? And how was it traveling by train to all the cities and everything? And, but they don't ask those questions. And it's too bad because, we could, Phil, in fact, it's funny because I played golf yesterday with a pilot for Air Canada, and they fly some of the charters for the jets and Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto. And he was saying, that, oh yeah, but they only have 50 seats. They're all first class seats and everything in their A320. And I told him what we flew on the Convair 580s and 640s. And he just laughed and he went, wow. He said, that must have been very difficult flying on those things, he said. And, it was a lot different. I remember one time going from Boston to St. Louis, it took us 9 hours and we had to stop for fuel because the headwinds were so yeah, it was like, it's a whole different ball game now or hockey game and the way things are done. But, that's the way it is. And the revenues have gone up extremely high. And, that's the way things are done now. And I get it. I just wish I had a chance to sit down with some of them and fill them in on what it was like when we played.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I think that's, again, as we've said, without repeating ourselves, that's why I just think it's so important that this does get passed on to the new generations. Speaking of which, for the new generations, we can actually reminisce a little bit here with you going back, because the Leafs just announced before we started recording this afternoon that they've hired Paul McLean as an assistant to join Keefe's staff. And they've just hired Manny Malhotra as well. So it looks like they've beefed up on the assistant coach's position. He was an ex-head coach. He's been recently with Columbus. And I guess the two questions I have for you here. Number one, you played against him, I assume, when he was with Winnipeg, and you must remember a few things about him. And number two, I wonder who pulled the trigger in this. Was this a management decision or was this Sheldon Keefe?
Well, that one I can't answer.
Yes, of course. That was a loaded question. Okay.
But I do remember Paul. I remember playing against him, and he's a big man. He's a big, big man. He's another Maritimer, too, by the way. And
you had to get that in there, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I had to, yeah, for sure. And but I mean, I remember him. He scored a lot of goals, and he scored a lot of goals around the net, like 5-8 feet out. Most of his goals were scored in that area, and there's no question he had the best mustache in the league. When I played against him, other than Lanny, him and Lanny were pretty close. I would say as far as the best mustache in the National Hockey League.
What, the same barber?
Oh, they probably did. They're a little different color, but pretty close.
Well, I think I didn't mean to set you up with that question with management or Keefe, because we don't. But there's obviously, we've talked about this in the past because, and you brought up a good point about this a couple of weeks ago, that if management is the one doing the hiring like they did in the Babcock last year, the writing's on the wall for you that you better produce, or guess what, your guy's standing either to the left or the right of you behind the bench. But if it's the coach, it may give him a little bit more easy. But this side, I would have to say it's probably a combination of both, just as a total guess on my part.
Yeah, I think it is. And, I've talked to guys coaching in the NHL now and so on. And a lot of times now it used to be the coach's decision on all the assistants. Now it's kind of like, okay, we're going to let you hire one or two, and we're going to hire one. The management, that is. Mm-hmm. And so it's not always up to the coach now. It's a little bit different. At one point it was the coach would hire all his own guys. And now I think it's kind of switched where management has a say, not only in all the hirings, but I think they hire one guy themselves.
Yeah,
And
it's just yeah. It looks like that. I mean, and it also sends a little signal that you may have gotten a pink slip this summer, but we're going to give you another chance just to maybe shake things up a little bit here. But you're on watch, and that's kind of the message. And in this new win now league of the NHL, it is, and basically every sport, it's not surprising. And you know what? It's the way business has to be done. So
I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, if you don't win for 2 years, 3 years, then, you know, they've got to move on and they got to change things around.
Yep. I mean, you can't fire all the players. And we're seeing a good example of that with Tampa and Dallas, which they played game 4 a couple hours after we were finished recording this afternoon. A little bit of a drubbing by Lightning the other day, 5-2. They got a big boost throughout the lineup with the return of their captain, Steven Stamkos. You just got to admire this guy. He hasn't played since February. Actually, I was at the game when he got hurt against the Leafs, and he hasn't played, been stuck in the bubble the whole time, training by himself. You know what that's like coming back from an injury as opposed to playing at a real high game speed level. Steps on the ice in third shift, makes an absolute Hall of Fame move to the blue line, steps in and roofs it. And just the look of elation on his face and on his teammates in the bench, I'll tell you, Dallas must have been going, uh-oh, here we go.
Well, it was a big boost. There's no question about that. I think the players and the coaches were very, very happy for him. Unfortunately, he played one more shift and didn't complete the game and is not able to play tonight. But I got to tell you, Tampa Bay, I mean, they were tenacious. They were on the puck all night long. They were just relentless in their forecheck and everything. It was just unbelievable to watch them play and how hard they played. And I think having their captain come back, even though he wasn't able to complete the game, he sat on the bench. And I think that in itself probably, motivated everybody just a little bit more. That's all they needed was a little bit more. And they got it.
You could see it. And the old adage goes, to win a Stanley Cup, your best players have to outplay the other team's best players. And Tampa's best players are outplaying Dallas's best players. And Tyler Seguin, he's trying hard. You can see, but that puck is just not bouncing for him. Jamie Benn cannot do it all on his own. And unless he starts producing, this could be over pretty quick, I would say. They've got to get more out of the big guys.
Well, that top line, Radulov, Seguin, and Ben, I mean, they're not producing at all. And if Dallas is going to win the Stanley Cup, they got to get hot. I don't mean just produce 1 goal per game or something like that. They got to get hot because Tampa's top line is really hot right now. And they're getting contributions from their other lines as well and from the blue line. And so unless that top line in Dallas starts to produce, it could be a very quick series.
Well, they've been able to sort of skate by with the goaltending of O'Dobbin because he's been standing on his head. The last couple of games, he's looked a little bit ordinary, which he's entitled to at some point. But they've just got to get more out of their big guys in. But there's still lots of hockey to play. They seem to be having a little bit of magic following them around Dallas. So don't rule them out just yet because they can bounce back pretty quickly because they were still in the game. And they were a goal away from just turning this around. But I'll say this. The one thing that's really impressed me on both sides that I've been watching are the defensemen. Hedman and Sergachev and Tampa in particular. Would Montreal like to have that trade back?
I don't know why they ever made it to begin with. But.
And my goodness. But he's a restricted free agent this year if they want to jump in and maybe throw an offer sheet at him. But in Dallas, Heskinen, of course, is a stud. But the guy that's really impressing me is Jamie Olysek. He just seems to be a big man who's usually a stay-at-home defenseman, but the way he's been jumping into the play, he's been producing goals and driving to the net. As Leaf fans, you knew we'd have to swing it back to the Leafs at some point, of course, even though they've been out of it for a month and a half. But the one thing that Leafs can take a little comfort from is the fact that I think when Kyle Dubas was designing his team or putting his team together, this is what he envisioned his defense being able to do. The only difference is He's got half the equation right. The equation he's missing is that these guys, the four that we mentioned and the rest, all defend in their own end as strong as they go in the other end.
Yeah, they're very good in their own zone. And Jamie, it almost looked like a year or so ago that he was finished, that, he was going to be an American League player. I coached him in minor midget, the young Nats, when he was a 15-year-old. And he was a big, tall guy, kind of like a Bambi out there. But we worked with him. And, he worked extremely hard, obviously. And but it looked like a year or two ago that perhaps, he was destined to finish his career in the minors. But he's really, worked extremely hard. And I like the way he's playing. I think he's playing well defensively. He's rushing with the puck, getting deep down into the other team's zone and making things happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Heiskanen is great. Lindell, what's the other guy? Klingberg. They're all good, and Tampa's defense have been outstanding as well.
Yeah, so it's been a terrific series so far. Played at a very high level, and again, we'll watch what's interesting again tonight, as we always do. So we will. I think it's about time to turn it over to our guest that we've got today. Now, we've tried to take a little different twist, and we want to shake things up a little bit from time to time and talk about all pro hockey because we think it's so important. Now, a couple of our guests today, I think you're going to really enjoy these guys. Maybe you, Squid, in particular, on one name by the name of Justin Vaive. I don't know if that name rings a bell with you or anything, but
a little bit.
Yeah, so him and this other young guy by the name of Jesse Schultz, they're a couple of pros who spent the majority of their careers in the minors.
Yeah.
Now, from my point of view, I think it's very important people to understand, one, how tough it is to make it and stick in the National Hockey League. Everybody's not a first overall pick or for top 5 pick that gets an automatic slot into an NHL Hockey Cup. It doesn't work like that. Number 2, how many great players are playing at lower levels? And we listened to Paul Bissonnette a couple of weeks ago tell us about his career in ECHL. He has never forgotten where he came from. And Brucey Boudreau last couple of weeks telling us, again, how good those leagues are and what people don't appreciate about it. And third, what I think you're going to hear today from these two kids is, I call them kids because I'm so old, the passion that these kids have for playing the game for the right reason, for the love of the game. Because believe me, playing in ECHL, you don't get rich.
No, you don't, and I call them kids too because one of them is my kid. But
yes.
They love the game. They love playing, and they get to kind of live vicariously like NHLers. Kind of. I mean, it's quite a bit different. The buses and bus trips and all that, but they're still playing at the professional level. And to win a championship in the East Coast League for these guys is like winning a Stanley Cup. And, so they keep playing. They want to keep playing. And I think more so Justin rather than Jesse, because Justin's only 31. He might be still holding out a little bit of hope that maybe the American League might be something he might get for a few years, or perhaps, get an opportunity to play on a fourth line on an NHL team. And, that's why he keeps playing. And who knows what's going to happen down the road for these guys, but they love the game and they just keep on playing.
Well, we heard Gabby tell us 2 weeks ago that he was playing at 38, still holding out hope that there may be a chance that somebody could pick him up for just that last run. So anyway, we've got...
So you're saying there's a chance.
Well, I'm saying you know what? As long as he can put skates on his feet and step onto the ice, there's always a chance. Just ask one of the 6-year-olds that I played with every Thursday night. Every guy still thinks they're watching for them, okay? All the guys from Markham are trying to emulate the Stamkos goal last night. And there's 5 Stammers playing last night in our game. So anyway, without further ado, let's tune in and listen to the real pros tell us how it really happens, okay? Back to you guys shortly. Squid, keeping with our theme covering all hockey, we have a couple of guests today. One in particular you may be familiar with, and I'm referring to your son, Justin, who's joined by another longtime pro, Jesse Schultz. How are we doing, guys?
Doing well.
Really good.
Good. So you got now you guys, I saw that your season in ECHL, you guys are in Cincinnati. Now, Jesse, you're in Nashville?
Knoxville.
Knoxville. And I see your season scheduled to start December the 4th, but is that kind of still going to hold true? Do you think there's some room this thing may change again?
Yeah, I think right now it's day to day. I mean, you look at stuff online or on TV, and some days are good, some days are bad. So I think, we just got to take it day by day. I think Justin might know a little bit more, but I think there's another date in January that they can also push it back to. So still got a couple 3 months to go. So hopefully things continue getting a little bit better and we end up playing.
Well, Justin, you said you guys are skating a little bit. And how's the training and stuff like that going for you guys? It's a little bit of leeway for you to get some stuff done?
Yeah, they've been it's been kind of pretty standard compared to the last couple summers with the rinks here and being able to work out and stuff like that. It's, basically almost normal. Obviously with everything else done, it's as normal as it can be. But they're, like Jesse said, there's a few dates that, they've been looking at, different contingency plans. And it's, day to day, week to week down here. You see all the other sports kind of starting up, college football, the NFL, which is all good signs for hockey. And then recently they've been talking about college basketball starting up at the end of November. So I know they're taking it day by day. And same with us. And hopefully things just keep moving in the right direction.
So now, Jess, you got a new role this year. You're going to be, is this your second year as an assistant coach? You're getting into the coaching end of it, I think now, aren't you? And is that something you're looking for? And Jess, you can jump in and answer this one too, maybe somewhere down the road. But Jess, this is kind of for you, or Justin, this is for you, your new kind of roles to be in the coaching end?
I think ultimately when you spend a lot of time playing in general in any league, it's kind of what you know, what you love, and what you like to do. And for most people, regardless of the career, when you kind of find that path, it's something that you want to do for the rest of your life, if you're fortunate enough. And it was just an opportunity just to kind of see a little more of the ins and outs behind hockey, in the coaching and the all the stuff that goes with it, the travel, the picking of teams and how they kind of go about signing guys and salary caps and stuff like that, and just understanding in a deeper sense that you normally wouldn't just playing, I guess.
Jesse, what about you? Have you got any thoughts? You're a 17-year pro, I believe, and is there any thoughts somewhere to be behind the bench at some point?
Yeah, I think I'd like to stay in the game somehow. I think that's one of the reasons I keep playing. I don't really know what I want to do after, so I just try to keep playing as long as I can. But yeah, I think you spend so much time playing it. It's really the only thing I've known my whole life since I was a young kid. So, it's probably I'm not going to be able to do anything really any better. So I think, using that expertise I've gained playing so long, I think it would be, kind of stupid not to stay in the game in some fashion.
So now, Rick, I promise we're going to get you in this conversation at some point.
You're trying to break Gordie Howe's record for the most games or what?
I don't know. This pandemic might end my career. I don't know. I hope I'm not going out this way, though. That's for sure.
Well, now, boys, I'd like you guys to discuss your path to the pros. But and Justin, let's start with you. Obviously, the obvious questions coming up is, how is life for you growing up under the wings of a famous hockey player as a dad?
Honestly, I didn't really even notice it until I was probably about 13, 14 years old. Obviously growing up in South Carolina and then moving out east and still being young and just kind of getting into competitive hockey, I never really put much weight into it, and nor did anybody down in South Carolina really even know who he was anyway, other than the coach Stingray. So that never really kind of dawned on me until Toronto, which, obviously playing in Toronto, growing up there, if your dad did anything with hockey, not even close to the achievements that my dad got, you're going to hear about it. And, honestly, I never really put a lot of pressure on myself. We were different players from when I was growing up to what he was. And that's kind of what I clung to and kind of thought of myself. And I never really put myself in that fashion. And then, obviously it got a little more intense going to college and being drafted, and then the comparisons started coming out and all that business. But even then, I kind of knew I was a different player, and I was graced with a lot more size and stuff. So I kind of a different way. So from that standpoint, I never really had much pressure on myself comparison wise.
Yeah,
And just,
I think
oh,
one
go
time
ahead.
I told him, I said, I wish I had your size and I could go back in time and beat the hell out of all those guys that beat the shit out of me when I was playing.
Now, Jesse, you've got some hockey background in your family, or spread through your family too. How did that have any impact on you as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, my dad obviously never played at any high level, but my cousin played in the NHL. He played over 1,000 games, so played Minnesota, Edmonton, Columbus, and then ended in Philly. So we grew up. We played together all the way until I think about Pee-wee or Bantam, until we went away to play in a bigger center. So yeah, it was. We always had pretty good teams growing up. It was pretty neat to grow up playing with him. We played a year and a half together in Prince Albert in the Western Hockey League. So that was really neat.
Now, Justin, you played on a pretty good minor team with the Toronto Marlboros. And one of the players in there may be a little bit familiar to some Leaf fans by the name of John Tavares. Talk about some of those years. I mean, certainly then wearing that blue and white must have been pretty special for you, but also the attention that team got.
Yeah, it was again, I wasn't really prepared or really knew what the GTHL was or anything. Like, I played in Oakville for 1 year and kind of got a taste of how kind of, crazy it is up there for hockey and the paths that you can take and stuff. But I never really realized until I did transfer to the Marlies. And then slowly over 2 years, we kind of formed, did everything we could to kind of get all the players that we wanted together. And yeah, looking back, and I still have people that ask, they're like, oh, who was on that team again? And then, you rattle off 8-10 names that all played in the NHL or the AHL, OHL. Like, it was just, there's probably never going to be a team like it again, just because of how kind of diverse the skill level is now across the country and the world. But back then it was just, we were able to kind of get everybody on the same page and all commit to the same team. And, I don't even think I realized how good we were and the players were on that team when I was that age until I was, 18, 19 and seeing, 4 or 5 of my teammates playing in the NHL at that age.
So now let's get the old man's thoughts on this. Like, what was it like sitting in the stands watching him at that level progress with these kids?
Well, it was actually a lot of fun because they didn't lose.
Sure.
I think the 3 years that they played, well, he was there for 4. Johnny was with them for the last 3 of his 4. And I think in 3 years they lost 1 game, I believe, and 1 or 2 at the most. They won, the OHL Cup as minor midgets. I mean, they just dominated the GTHL each and every year. And it was really fun to watch. It was, I really enjoyed it as a parent. It's not, and the good thing is I kind of had a good mindset watching my son play and not thinking about NHL or any grand things in the future. I loved watching the way they played when they were that age. And it was a lot of fun for me. So, I wasn't thinking 10 years down the road or anything like that of what's going to happen. I was enjoying what I was seeing. Sam Gagne, Johnny, Justin, Kima Lou. I mean, I can't even remember Cody Golubev. They just had a great team. The coaches were fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
So now, Jesse, you grew up playing in the WHA, and after a good junior career, you got passed over a couple times in the draft, but you ended up signing as a free agent with Vancouver. Then you didn't make the Manitoba Moose. How was your mindset going through all of that, like the frustrations, especially how hard you worked to get there?
Yeah, I never really, it never really bothered me too much not to get drafted, to be honest. I feel like I kind of was a late bloomer in that way. I never really, put up numbers in junior until, 19, 20-year-old. So I didn't really expect to get drafted, but I knew, you know, I was getting better, so that was good, and I was just trying to get my foot in the door somehow. So, you know, signing the contract out after my 20-year-old year to turn pro was a big step, and then obviously, you know, another big step to go to the AHL. I spent a year in the East Coast Hockey League when I was 21, and then first year in the American League was, I think, was 2 lockouts ago. I think that was 04-05. So that was an interesting year to have for my first year. It was pretty amazing to see some of the guys that were down in the American League that year. So it was a fun year.
But I gotta hand it to you.
Pretty amazing when you start talking about decades instead of years, right? I mean, 1,000 pro games, or over 1,000 now, and I think that's pretty damn impressive.
That's awesome. Well, you know, now Jess, here, you know, you mentioned 2005. Now here's where I got to give you your kudos as a professional hockey player, as guys can learn from. 2005, 2006, you had a big breakthrough with Manitoba. You led the team in scoring. Your coach gets elevated the next year. Alan Vigneault gets moved up to the big job with the big club in Vancouver. You look like you're odds-on favorite to make the team, but it doesn't turn out that way. And you end up getting traded to Atlanta, and you don't even get a sniff there, and you end up playing in the minors with the Wolves, but you end up winning a Calder Cup. Take us through that whole period. I mean, were you frustrated, or you just thought, just got to keep plugging away and somebody will notice at some point?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was part of it. I knew, you know, having Alain Vigneault, when he moved up there to Vancouver, I had him in Manitoba, like he said, and yeah, it was. I think he was hoping I was going to be able to make the jump and make the team that year. I don't have anyone to blame. That was, you know, I just didn't play well enough. I didn't have a good enough camp. So then going back to Manitoba that year, I think I had my worst season statistically in my 5 years in the American League that year, and then I was traded, I think, that off season to Chicago. So yeah, it was a fresh start going to Chicago, and you know, Atlanta wasn't very good at the time. So, you know, you always think you're going to get kind of a look up there, but we had a ton of good players in Chicago too, and ended up winning the Calder Cup. So there was you know, a few guys that I was behind kind of in the pecking order to get a call up, but going on the Calder Cup run was amazing.
Well, I'll have to call my buddy John Anderson, who was pitching it up, and give him heck for not calling me up.
I love playing for Johnny. He only had 2 rules. He said no one-touch passing and no backhand flip passes or something was his 2 rules. Pretty much everything else was a go. So.
Yeah. Well, now Justin, you chose the college route, while a lot of your teammates on that Mark team and so on, they you know, they went to the OHL and they went through the draft and all that stuff. Just walk us through that decision you had to make to go college. And did the old man have any say in that, or did you look to him for some direction?
No, he never really weighed in too much. You know, obviously he helped me explore both options. I don't know if it was growing up in the U.S., you know, as a kid, and maybe in liking, you know, the university, the kind of lifestyle and what it can give to you after hockey. I don't know if it was, I wasn't confident in myself, so I wanted a backup plan if hockey didn't work out. I think it was a combination of a lot of things. Being American too, I was able to play at that under 17 and 18 program.
Yeah, the national program, the U.S. national program.
Oh, I think that right there really, I think, paved the way for me to go to college, having the ability to do that and play against colleges and the exposure you get from that, being able to go to the U17s, the U18s, and just the ability to, if that didn't work out after that, I could still go back to the OHL. And that was always in my mind. So it never really closed a door. It left both open. Whereas, like, if I wanted to go to college and I didn't have that opportunity, I would have had to play tier 2 somewhere. And I just didn't know if I wanted to do that for 2 full years waiting for college. So that really, I think, kind of helped me out that way.
Now, maybe your dad tells.
Do you want me to tell you exactly how it went down, Mike?
Absolutely. And while you're on it, talk about the draft also with Berkey.
Okay. So what happened, and I give him a lot of credit. At 16 years old, I mean, you're young, and, you know, impressionist. Like, we went to Sudbury after he was drafted by Sudbury, and they treated him very well. They treated us very well. Mm-hmm. the U.S. program wanted him as well. And we sat down, and he said, Dad, you know, I don't know. He says, the OHL, 16-year-olds, unless you're a real superstar, you don't get to play a whole lot. I think I got a better chance of playing more at the U.S. program, and they got a great off-ice program there. And that's why he decided to go there. It was his thinking and forward thinking, I guess. But at 16, for a kid to think like that, I thought that was pretty impressive.
And now, and of course, then he comes along, the draft comes along, and Berkey takes him in Anaheim.
Well, Berkey takes him and
loves the big guys. So, Justin, you're right on his scope there, that's for sure.
Well, the funny thing was the draft was in Columbus that year, and I believe Rick Kern was your agent at the time, correct? Yeah. And Rick told him, don't go to the draft.
Oh, wait, hold on. The only thing is here, going into the draft, I was not on any of the North American scouting reports. I was nowhere on there. And then we went to the U18s, which is in April. So a month and a half before and I had probably the best tournament. Yeah, the best 7 games of my career up to this point over an international stage with every European scout over there and everything. And there wasn't a new central scouting report after the year-end ones from the major junior things. So we were still going off the old.
Yeah, I got you. The data, I got you.
Okay, but I had a real good feeling that he was going to get drafted. And I thought maybe 3rd round, you know, second, possibly late second, maybe if he was lucky. And I took him down to Miami for, what the heck did we go there for? I can't even remember now. Orientation or something?
No, my unofficial visit.
Yeah, so, and I really wanted us to take our, you know, suits and go to Columbus for the draft. And to this day, I'm still disappointed that we didn't, because he ended up going 92nd overall. And then he would have had a chance to go down and meet everybody at Anaheim's table. And I just think that would have been one hell of an experience for him to go through that. And, you know, but Rick Kern was adamant about not going, that he didn't want him to be disappointed. But I had a different feeling, and I don't know why. I guess probably
you're his dad, that's why.
Well, but he started really coming on the last part of that season with the U.S. program, his 2nd year. And then he did have a fantastic tournament in the U18s. And I was there. I watched it. I was in Europe to watch it. And I believe you were, I think, 2nd on your team in points for that tournament. So, I don't know. I just had a real good feeling. And to this day, I'm still a little bit disappointed, because I think for him, that would have been one heck of an experience.
So, guys, Justin and Jess, let's get through your first camp. So you guys, your mindset, again, I mean, that's my favorite word. Your mindset going into your first camp, your expectations, maybe the disappointments, surprises that you saw on your first game. Let's start with you, Jesse, and Justin, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye-opener going to your first camp. You watch these guys on TV, and then you know, next thing you know, you're in the room with them, skating with them. So obviously pretty nervous, and it really goes by pretty quick, to be honest. And then you know, you're probably sent down or you make the team. But yeah, no, it's I was definitely nervous, but they're fun. You try to learn as much as you can and try to learn what it's like to be a real pro and learn from the best in the game.
Well, what surprises, like, were the guys way better than you thought they were? Were they as you expected they'd be, or like the intensity, was it as you would expect or even more intense?
Yeah, I think you just realize how hard the guys work, and, you know, off ice, on ice, practice habits. They're just they do everything hard and you know, all the time. So I think that's something that you know, you'll find that you know, minus the high end guys on teams, you know, the bottom end guys and maybe the top end American League guys, there isn't a huge difference, I don't think. It's just that maybe a little intangible or, work ethic or anything that sets those guys apart. So I think that's what you'll notice those guys up there do it maybe a little bit more consistently.
And Justin, what about you?
I think I was I guess coming from college, so my first camp wasn't until I was 22 years old. Whereas a lot of guys that are drafted at 18, 19 or in major junior, they're allowed to go to camps starting at 18. So I think maybe I was a little older, so I wasn't as kind of overwhelmed, but to say I wasn't nervous, obviously I was. But just, I guess kind of what Jesse said, those high end guys that you see in the all-star games and you see, on the power plays and everything like that, you see how hard they work and how, much effort they put into even the smallest little details. And I think also, though, it kind of gives you a lot of motivation to kind of see the lifestyle. You get the treatment of being there, the meals, the travel, just the overall treatment from the staff and the hotels and everything. It's just, it gives you that little bit of a taste where you're like, oh man, this would be one hell of a lifestyle, not to mention the money you make, but just everything that comes with it. And I think Jesse, we were talking about it when you were here a little while ago, the interview that Winnipeg's coach had. I forget who. Yeah, but who is he talking about? Do you remember the name?
I don't know. Oh, and what, on Overdrive or?
No. He Maurice had an interview after their game, and he was talking about a guy on their fourth line.
Yes, he came from ECHL, and he made your team. Yes,
and that's what Jesse was talking about is you realize from the third, fourth line of the NHL to everybody else is not that big of a gap. And it gives guys a lot of motivation if you're down, but it also gives guys that are up that much more incentive to stick because they know how close the gap is between them and the guys right behind them. And, this kid didn't get an opportunity. He wasn't a first or second round pick, and he just worked his ass off for so many years that he finally got that opportunity. And I mean, obviously you have to take the opportunity and run with it. And obviously he did. He was a huge player for them in the playoffs.
Now, Jesse, I was
going to ask Jesse something.
Oh, go ahead. You go.
Squid into everything where he's been. Obviously, what's it like? You guys have played together for a few years now. And do the guys call you Suitcase by any chance? Is that your nickname?
Not yet. No. I've been in.
It might be now.
Yeah, it might be. I have been a few places, so yeah, I probably could.
Well, Jesse, how about this? Let's put it more delicately. We want to this. I mean this with the utmost respect and actually admiration. We're calling you the modern version of last week's guest we had on, Bruce Boudreau, who played, I think, in every league in existence in North America and led basically every team he played on in scoring. And you played in 11 different leagues throughout North America and Europe. So for the listeners, first off, what was your favorite league? I mean, the AHL, I guess, would be the closest one. So, I mean, aside from the obvious, what was your favorite league? And what was the difference between, say, European and North American pros?
I really liked playing in Germany. I played in the DL and the DL2. I think just the fan experience. It's kind of like a soccer match where you got everyone just standing. You got two ends of the ice where fans don't sit the whole game and they're chanting, and they got flags and banners they're waving, and it's just kind of a neat experience. And then after the game, if you win, you'll kind of do a skate around or all line up and do a little salute to the fans, which I think is kind of neat. So I would probably say Germany was probably one of my favorite places. Just living there, it's a great country, and played in Italy was fun too. Living in the mountains was neat in a little ski town. So yeah, I've been a few different places for sure.
Well, now what I'll get, Sean.
You know what I was going to say, that just like Toronto in the 80s, they were all standing up, except a lot of them were wearing brown paper bags over their head.
and throwing the sweaters on the ice.
Yeah.
Well, now one of the places you played in Sheffield in England.
Yeah.
And of all places, now, when I followed the Leafs for all 89 games in 2018-19, I met a family of 3 from Sheffield wearing their sweaters at the beginning of the year. I met a guy at the end of the year from Sheffield. And by the way, that family was over watching Liam Kirk play for the Peterborough Petes. And
Yeah, I played with Kirky that year a little bit.
There you go. And this guy, Elliot Hall, was a big hockey fan. He's flown over here for a number of Toronto games. I met him in Boston when I was traveling. Anyway, sent him a note to see if there's any stories on Jesse that he had from Sheffield. But the number of National Hockey League players that went through Sheffield, as an example, and that league, and he talked about the Euro tournament, maybe touch on that about the level of play that is actually really over there. And some of your experience in Sheffield, and I got a story for you to relate to us that he told us about you.
Yeah, it's surprising. I don't think it. I actually think of many years ago, guys were going over there and making actually really, really good money. But you don't really think of it as a higher end European league. But you're right. There are a lot of guys that go over that have played in the NHL, maybe lower end guys, but at the end of their career, they might go over and want to travel Europe, and it's a pretty good league. It used to be more of a fighter league. Used to be a lot of fighter guys, but there's some skilled guys, and I think it's really cool. Sheffield's a nice town. They get really good fan support. It was a little tough driving on the other side of the car and other side of the road. That was a little interesting at first. I don't think I drove for the first probably 2 or 3 months that I was over there. I was just too scared to get in the car.
Well, Elliot told me a story about you had the guys overnight. You guys were watching a game or doing something or playing cards, and the guys left. And I think you were on the first floor of your flat, and one of the guys had to climb through the window to get his keys. I mean, you said to him, "Why didn't you just knock on the door?" And he said, "I didn't want to disturb you. You're watching TV."
Yeah, that was my roommate. Yeah, it was interesting living with him. I won't name who it was. I can maybe tell you off camera, but he was coming home late quite often, and yeah, that's what I said to him. We were on the first floor. I said, "Just knock on my window and I'll let you in," but he wanted to rather crawl through the window. So,
sorry. I was going to say to you also, the other thing is that now, like our friend Mr. Boudreau, you're very much like him in the fact that you won an ECHL MVP and scoring championship in 2018-19. 37 years old. Bruce's last couple of years had 100-point seasons his last 3 years before he started coaching, and you're basically online to be doing the same type of thing. I asked Bruce this question, I'm going to ask you, but did you ever think, and Justin, I want you to answer this one too, that at some point the show is just not for you, even though you're never going to give up, but just make best of what you have and just appreciate what you'd be given the chance to play in the leagues you were?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm worried every year that I start playing that I'll get out there and just won't know what to do and won't have it. So, sometimes you start slow and then you kind of comes to you after. And, I think I've been fortunate to keep playing at a higher level. And, I think it just playing for so long and being able to think the game, I think has helped me a lot. Obviously can't skate with a lot of these younger kids now, but being able to think the game, I think, goes a long way and really helps me to keep producing. Justin, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me too, it's, the chase for that elusive championship. In college, we lose the national championship game, obviously devastating fashion. And then in my pro career, I think I've made the playoffs every single year. I'm basically, yeah. And, I've been to conference finals. I've been to, second, first, every round, and just never had that, that year where everything clicked with the team. And I think that's kind of part of the reason, because I would never be able to, forgive myself if I retire and the next year, Cincinnati goes on a run and wins the championship. And then I think also just, I guess, every year, like Jesse said, you start out and, you go a game or two without a point or without scoring. And you're like, oh, this might be the year where it's just not clicking. And, it's obviously, a little nerve wracking, especially how young every league's gone nowadays. Even from when I first started to now, the average age is just like cut in half almost from where it was when I first kind of got into the league. And I guess you try not to look at that, and you try to just, keep doing what you do and what you got you there and what's keeping you around.
Well,
you're making the old guy feel bad here, Justin. Like talking about how young the league's got. But hey, I've watched all their games, and these two actually play together on the same line for the most part. And Jesse can still. I know he said he can't skate with the young kids, and I understand what he means, but he gets around pretty damn good for 37 years old, I can tell you.
Well, somebody must have thought so. I don't think his dad is the only vote for MVP in the scoring championship. So something worked well there. So for both you guys, just on that line that you've just touching on, Justin, is both you guys, and we've had this conversation with guys who played in the minors and played in the lower levels, just how good, like what the guy, like, and again, we referenced Bruce Boudreau because he was an NHL coach, and when he sends guys down, he says the look on their face is such disappointment, but he looks at these guys and he says to them, you have no idea how good these players are down here. Like, you're going to a very good league. And so don't put your head down. Go down there and work your tail off if you want a shot, because these guys are good players. Just how good are those guys in ECHL and well, we know the AHL guys are good, but the ECHL is an example. Justin, you go first.
I mean, I won't lie. I thought the same thing. I think every single kid that has ever played hockey thinks the same. Like, you see 2 leagues down, you're like, oh, I don't belong there. I should never be there. And I don't know if it's how society's gone a little bit and the kind of entitlement that's, I guess, pushed to the forefront when it comes to athletics and stuff. But it's, I don't think they really know until they get down here. And the first game, it's like they're just overwhelmed, and you're like, man, yeah, what'd you think? Like, people aren't down here just playing, beer league hockey, just having fun. Like, it's a professional league, and guys want to move up, or some guys, this is their career down here. And I thought the same thing, though, until you actually experience it and see how good some of these players are. I mean, it's the same thing as the AHL to NHL, where we said, the top guys in the AHL are just as good as the bottom guys in the NHL. It's the same thing here. The top line in the ECHL could play on any AHL team. It's just either age, opportunity, draft. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that go with it, but talent and skill-wise, that's definitely not the separating factor.
Yeah, one thing on that too is that, like, I mean, I coached in South Carolina in the ECHL in the 90s, 93 to 98, as a matter of fact. And the difference now that I see is unbelievable. Like, actually, teams are signing, when they sign some of their draft picks, they're sending them directly to the ECHL because they want them playing. And, I mean, it's almost like a 3-tier system now they've gone to, where as when I was coaching, it was like, I might have had 2 guys under contract if I was lucky. And the rest of the guys I had to go find myself. Now it's a little bit different. You see a lot of guys that are signed being sent down there, especially the young guys for their first year.
Well, we had 12 2 years ago that were contracted with Rochester and Buffalo.
Jesse, what about your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I just going off what Rick said there, I think even, like NHL teams are looking at the ECHL as a developmental league now. And as Justin said, when we had the 12 guys down there, I mean, I know when I started, there was no developmental coaches anywhere I never saw one. And now we got guys coming down once a month, into the East Coast Hockey League, because we have guys down there that they want to see and they want to develop, and they think they have a future in the organization. So, yeah, I think it gets better every year. I think it's just a matter of, NHL only has a certain amount of spots. AHL has a certain amount of spots. There's a lot of good players. So guys are going to get pushed down. So I think it's just important that, when guys get sent down there, they don't, hold their head down. And, it might be a year or 2 that you're down there. You use it to get better. And, if you're good enough, you'll eventually get up there, and can't look at it as a step back in your development at all.
Well, for all 3 of you here, this question can apply. Some of the things that have happened in ECHL just some of the bizarre things you saw over the years, even come from management, some players going out. I mean, everybody knows that, the guys aren't exactly making tons of money down there. So everybody is, very much on budgets and so on. But some of the crazier things, and maybe Rick, you started off as a coach, some of the things you saw coming from the big leagues and coaching at that level, some of the differences and attitudes maybe, and just stuff that goes on.
My biggest take from it when I started was, first of all, I was in Charleston, South Carolina, so I could make as many mistakes coaching as I wanted to because people didn't know a thing about hockey. Okay, so that was great. I remember Jerry Zucker, our owner, God rest his soul, he passed away, but I was in my office and we were playing Columbus Inferno, I think they were called at the time, from Columbus, Ohio.
The Chill?
Or not Inferno, what were they called?
Columbus Chill. The Columbus Chill.
Whatever. Yeah, the Chill, you're right, yeah. Anyway, we're losing the game, and here's this billionaire who comes in, walks in my office, and he says, Rick, he said, what's wrong? I said, what do you mean, what's wrong? Like it was, it wasn't a blowout or anything. He goes, well, they seem to be stroking a lot better than you guys are. I don't know what it is, and I'm going, stroking. So he had no idea what the hell hockey was. And that was his analogy of, I guess, they're skating better than we were at in the period. So anyway, there's a ton of funny things that I could get into, but I'd rather
give us one.
I'd rather hear what these guys have to say.
Well, boys, you go and then you give us one. Okay, boys, give us one of your funniest stories from the league that you found kind of humorous.
I'd probably say I have two from my first year. The one is that was probably 2010, 11-ish, when Clemenson and I think Theodore were in Florida, and they both got hurt the same game. So both of our goalies got called up. And so we had practice the next day, and we're looking around the room. We're like, there was nobody else it was my second month of pro hockey, and we go out for practice at our practice rink, which isn't the best place in the world. And our radio guy and our equipment manager are the two goalies out there. It's what is happening right now? This is pro hockey. And our equipment guy couldn't even go down because the gear, he was wearing one of our goalies' old gear, and it was so big he literally couldn't go down at all. So he just stood there like Goldberg from the Mighty Ducks and just got hit with pucks for an hour. And I think there was another one same year. We were on the bus going to Chicago, and day of a game. And we're on the bus, and everybody's kind of looking around. We had a ton of injuries, call-ups. There was people sick, whatever. We're looking around. We have 5 forwards and 4 defensemen on the bus. And we're and we play that night. And the coach is up there just going through a Rolodex of players, calling guys that are working full-time in Chicago, actual jobs, and asking if they can come play tonight. And we ended up, I had a guy from college that worked in Chicago, hadn't played in 6 months, or had his equipment on in 6 months, and we just pulled 4 guys out of an accounting firm and a financial thing, and we ended up winning the game 3-2, and these guys were literally puking in between periods, whatever, and I was this is something I will definitely not forget.
That's pretty. Well, how about you, Jesse? Can you top those two?
No, probably not, but I'm glad Vaive told the first story because he made me think of one. I didn't really have one, but it was my first year pro. I was in the ECHL with the Columbia Inferno, and we were playing the PD Pride, and we had only one goalie. I don't know where our other goalie was, but we had to bring along our the ticket guy from the office, and I don't even know if he was actually a goalie or not. He just dressed as a goalie, and our starter that night played about a period and a half or 2 periods, and we were up by probably 6 goals, and he cramped up and he had to leave the game. So our the ticket guy had to come out and play goal for the 3rd period, and they got within 1 goal, but they were shooting it from everywhere on the ice on the other end, and the centerman was shooting it off the face-off trying to score. this guy was going out behind the net trying to play the puck and stuff, and it was pretty funny. But we got out of there with a win, but we just barely did.
Isn't it great? Just be a coach for a second, not a father. How about that? Which I know you can be, because I tease you all the time about that. Isn't it great listening to these two speak to life in the minors and just the enthusiasm they have? You just got to love the fact that these guys make no excuses, hold no bitterness towards any of the organizations or any jealousies towards anybody else's success. If anything, they use it as an inspiration to try and help themselves move forward. And it's almost just like minor youth hockey. It's the foundation of hockey to begin with, but for the professional levels, these levels are the sort of professional grassroots levels that these guys are experiencing, but they're just embracing it. You just got to love this.
I mean, and as a coach, you love to see that. I know Matt Thomas, their coach, he loves these guys, and they go out every night and they give everything they have. And keep in mind that these guys play 3 games in 3 nights a lot on weekends, and they're busing from city to city. I can remember a few years ago, they played on a Friday night, I believe, in Kalamazoo, and then they had to play Saturday night, Sunday afternoon in Brampton. And they only had 11 or 9 forwards for the first game. And then Rochester sent 3 forwards to Brampton to meet them. And then they ended up winning the 2 games in Brampton. But they go through a lot. But like you said, they're not complaining. They're happy where they are. They're happy to play the game they love. And I mean, as a coach and as a fan, I think that's fantastic. And I think they touched on it too, was the fact that now there's a lot more guys that are being signed and sent to the ECHL to get ready for the American League and hopefully eventually the National League. And they're embracing that and they're helping these guys. So I couldn't help but marvel at, you know, how good they are as far as players and people and how they help their teammates.
Well, think about this, because as the league's getting younger and younger, there's more and more, there's not a lacking of players coming to play professional hockey. So what this is doing is this is cramping up all the leagues, but it's also putting pressure on guys to perform, or you're going to lose your job, because there's a lot of guys that are in their early 30s that still have lots left to give. You want those experienced guys that can help on a 4th line or 3rd line with a contending team come playoff time. Yet all these kids are being pushed too. So the competition is getting more intense as we move along.
Yeah, I don't think the competition in any of the pro leagues has been as high as it is now. All these young guys, 18, 19, 20 years old, coming out. I mean, and they're good. I mean, they're good hockey players. They're the top players in junior hockey. And, every year there's teams that are adding 1 or 2 guys that just came out of junior that are playing regular. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think the competition has ever been higher than it is right now in any of the professional leagues.
Well, just on that note alone, I guess we've got to step right into who we always talk about, our Maple Leafs. And speaking about additions, the talk centering all over social media and everywhere, all 146 GMs of the Toronto Maple Leafs on Twitter have got it figured out and have worked out all these scenarios for Kyle Dubas to get Alex Pietrangelo into a Leaf uniform. As much as we'd love to have that all happen, you have to be realistic at some point and step back and think about what this is really going to take. What people don't seem to understand, I was speaking to a GM, NHL GM earlier this week, and what people don't understand is that it's just not a simple process of subtraction to get addition, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. You're not going to, everybody's saying you can get rid of, you got rid of Kapanen already, you get rid of Johansson, you get rid of Kerfoot, you get rid of Nylander. It's just not that easy, because the other team is going to be in the same boat as the Leafs. They've got to make movements too. I mean, there's teams out there, you get the teams like Florida, LA, Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo. Yeah, they all have room, but they're all have cap room for a reason, because they're bad. So what are you going to get back? You're not going to get much back. And the thing is you're not going to give these players away. So the idea is with everybody getting crunched on cap space, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, this is going to be probably one of the most unique free agent years I think that we've ever seen. And that, as you say, there's a lot of good free agents out there. Bobby Ryan, I think, was put on waivers to be bought out today.
Yeah.
There's another guy. But the problem is, like there's probably only 5-6 teams in the entire league that can afford to sign any of these guys because nobody else has cap room. And, unless you're going to unload dollar for dollar, it's pretty tough to just go out and sign free agents because you got to give something up. And, they've cleared some cap space, but there's a whole lot more to clear before they're going to be able to go out and sign a guy like Pietrangelo or Krug or anybody that they think they need to sign. So it's quite possible that we might see pretty much the same defense without CC and Barry and Liljegren and these young guys coming in and taking, having to play on a regular basis.
Well, the other point to this is on two fronts. If you're a contending team like Columbus that does have, or Colorado, they do have room to add players. But Colorado's going to have roughly $22 million in cap space, but they've still got to sign 9 players. So the idea is, if the Leafs gave them one of their, more paid guys, let's use Nylander for a name, they traded Nylander, you do have to get equal value back. And the equal value back, it's not going to do any good because if you're giving up $7 million, you got to take back 5 as an example. That gives you $2 million that can let you sign a 4th line player. But the fact of the matter is that if you're going to get draft picks back, everybody talks about, well, what's your draft pick going to be if that team is a top echelon team? It's going to be a 25th to 32nd pick with Seattle joining in the next year. So what is that going to bring back to you? That's just suicide for a general manager. And a team in the bottom echelon of the league to make a move to sign a player that's $7 or $8 million, they may do that to sell some tickets. But as been pointed out to me, if they're going to make a move like that, if their 25th place team say, will this player get us into the playoffs? And if the answer is no, it's only going to move the needle a couple spots, then the obvious answer back would be, you know what? Why are we blowing our money now? Let's wait. Let's accumulate draft picks, bring some young kids in, and when we need to make that push, we've got good cash available to make some big moves. So you're not going to get anything back from these guys.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. The only problem is we're in Toronto. And
yes,
people
yes,
get pretty antsy.
Yes,
and they want success now. And everybody wants the Leafs to go out and sign this guy, that guy, this guy, this guy. And it's just not possible. But, we're in, the hottest hockey market, aside from maybe Montreal, on the universe. And everybody gets a little antsy. And now the only other thing I could see happening, the possibilities are sign and trade deals where, maybe St. Louis signs Pietrangelo to a deal that the Leafs would agree on, and then they could trade someone for him. Those are possibilities, but again, with the flat cap of $81.5 million for the next 3 years, boy, oh boy, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in this free agent market because, unless guys are willing to take less money, I'm not sure that a whole lot of these guys are going to get signed. Who's going to sign them? No one's got the extra cash sitting around cap room to sign these guys.
Well, let's take Pietrangelo again. He's the name of topic in Toronto right now. He's the target that all the fans want to see. So let's take him. If he agrees to come for 2 or 3 years, fine. Nobody loved to see him more in a uniform than you and I with the Maple Leaf crest in the front. But the fact remains, he's 30 years old. He is a declining asset as the years go along, and he's going to get 7 years from somebody. Well, come year 4, 5, 6, or 7, or 5, 6, or 7, he may not have been playing regular shift, and he may have been paid most of his money. And keep in mind, the signing of John Tavares at $11 million cap hit he's going to be in the same boat where he's going to slow down. It's not a question of him being a bad player. It's just a question of getting older. And, the skills are starting to fade after 10, 12 years of playing in the National Hockey League. And do you really want to risk having up to $20 million on your cap hit for a couple players that are not maybe even playing?
Well, no, and that's the thing. I mean, Pietrangelo is kind of maybe a rare breed in that respect, that he's very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, he doesn't wear himself out there. He's a real smart player, knows where to go, knows where to be. So in that respect, but hey, if you sign for 7 years or 8 years and you're 30 years old, there's no question that the last 3 years are going to be declining. There's no question. I mean, it's logic. I mean, and it's going to happen. I mean, you see it all the time, but, it's too bad because, how would things look if we didn't have a cap? Imagine that. Imagine back in the 2000s before the cap came along, where the Leafs, the Rangers, and teams like that were spending like $80, $90 million, $100 million. You could almost buy yourself a cup. And but now, going to be very difficult. And if they could get him on a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal at a reasonable number, it'd be worth it. But going beyond that, I don't think it's worth it.
Listen, he's not going to do that. He'd be silly to do that. If he can get 7 years, he'd take the 7 years, because this is the last big ticket he's going to get. And here's his one opportunity to really cash in. He's got to take advantage of that. Just look at Detroit, 25 years without missing the playoffs, 4 Stanley Cups, and now they become a bottom feeder. And they're 3, 4, 5 years and even more close to being contending again. So there's an example where it's run its course. And that's what you don't, in this National Hockey League of today, you can't get yourself in that position anymore. So you do have to look, even though it's a win now league, you do have to keep your eye in the future just slightly.
Well, there's no question. And I mean, they've made some good drafts, and, I'd like to see them perhaps draft bigger guys. When you look at the numbers over the past 3 or 4 years and the size of the players that the Leafs have drafted, there are guys that are playing junior hockey or over in Europe that are skilled, fast, and they're also big. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the 2 teams that are in the Stanley Cup final, okay, for the most part, they're pretty big teams. And even the little guys, Tyler Johnson, Yanni Gore, these guys, they are taking their shots at bigger guys. And they're working their tails off. So unless you're going to get guys like that are going to play that way, and they have that skill and speed, then maybe it's time to look at guys. Maybe they're not quite as skilled or quite as fast, but they're big, physical, and they can go in and retrieve pucks and make things happen.
Well, we are just around the corner from free agency, so it's definitely a subject we're going to be talking about and debating over the next few weeks. So we'll definitely be circling back. Stanley Cup playoffs next time we come to the air should be probably over. So we'll have lots to talk about on that, but it'll be free agency next. So before we sign off, anything you want to add before we close, Squid?
No, just that I love listening to the kids, as we call them.
Yeah.
And just their love of the game and their passion for the game. And, you look at Jesse, for instance, like played in 11 different leagues or something, or 11 countries.
11 leagues.
He's been all over the world and got a little bit of a cup of coffee with Vancouver. And, so he did get to play in the NHL. And the passion these guys have, I love it. I think it's great. And the fact that they just want to keep playing hockey professionally.
And I couldn't agree with you more on that. And it's something we're going to continue to do as we move forward. We're going to keep keep our eye on the guys from all levels of hockey. We want to talk to them all and let them tell their story and share that with our listeners. So we do want to thank everybody again for listening to the Hockey News, your source for all things pertaining to hockey since 1947. Remember, go to thn.com/deal for your subscription to the Hockey News. Follow Squid and I on Twitter at Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Rick on Ultimate. Rick is the ultimate Rick Vaive. He is. Follow him on follow him on Instagram at Rick Vaive. Speak much there, Mike. First day of the new tongue. And you got Mike now. Me. You can follow me on the Ultimate Leafs Fan on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Guys, if you want to send us any kind of vote, send it to Mike at Ultimate Leafs Fan. Send us a question or a comment about what we've been talking about, what you'd like us to talk about in the future. But again, until next week, guys, everyone have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.